What if instead of calling it a cult, we called it a political party?
I don't think you'll fool anyone these days. We're live, by the way, Coach Kevin. Well, we're not live. We have sound, because I got to do a sound check.
Oh, great.
I think maybe we should just do a podcast from now on. What do you think?
A podcast?
We're kind of doing a podcast. We're just doing push-ups and sit-ups while we do the podcast.
Yeah, I think that's what makes it better than a podcast. Because this way we can shame people at the same time.
I don't know if anyone's really been shamed, although we did get 9,000 views. We just hit 9,000 views across the whole channel.
Oh, man.
9,000!
Ooh, pretty soon.
Hey, Cameron's been watching a lot of YouTube. Cameron, man, you might want to get off the YouTube. And
No, don't say that. He's our best support. Maybe Connie.
I think Cameron and Connie are probably at least about 7,000 of those views.
Yeah.
I mean, a view, I guess, is just some person who makes the mistake of clicking on the thumbnail, right? If you watch it even for like 5 seconds to say like, oh no, that's not what I wanted to see, and you quickly, I still get a view.
Do you?
Yes.
You don't get like a fraction of a view?
You don't get I mean, I don't know what the minimum amount of time is to get a view, but I'm pretty sure it's like anything longer than a second.
Well, I appreciate Cameron and Connie writing all the bots that give us the views, fill us with this warm, fuzzy feeling.
I mean, 9,000 views, that's a lot. Even if you're only looking for a second, that's still 9,000 seconds, which is pretty good. What is 9,000 seconds?
I don't know.
Can you do some math real quick and figure out what 9,000 seconds is? That's still a couple hours, isn't it?
What do you want, in minutes? Do you want it in minutes? What's 9,000 divided by 60?
I don't know. I'm terrible at math. There you go, Kevin. You are alive in living color.
Oh, hooray.
Hooray, hooray.
What's 900?
It's Happy Monday. It's the day after Valentine's Day. How was your Valentine's Day, Coach Kevin?
It was great.
You know who I wrote a Valentine's Day card to?
Gordon Ryan.
What?
Gordon Ryan.
He's my second love. My first love is just jiu-jitsu in general, so I wrote a Valentine's Day card to jiu-jitsu. Roses are red, violets are blue. I like karate, but I love jiu-jitsu.
It's not bad.
I mean, I just made that up on the spot. I think that was excellent.
It was pretty good.
I mean,
We don't have to talk about it.
you're getting the dad jokes, you know.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, it was not good at all. It was terrible.
It's okay.
If you were just tuned in for that 5 seconds,
I can't do any better, so
I mean,
I shouldn't stand here in judgment.
you got the full, basically doesn't get any better than that.
Well, this coffee is kicking in. I want to change shirts.
What, are you sweating from the
Yeah.
coffee?
This is the first cup of coffee I've had in a long time.
Really? Are you getting all buzzed?
Yeah.
We gotta pick a code word for today real quick.
Shark rock.
My code word is gonna be, hold on. There's nobody watching. We're by ourselves here.
It's President's Day.
I mean, that's not even a real holiday.
It's real.
It's not. Make me feel awkward.
It's the
What are people doing? Everyone's still at home. Everyone's on lockdown.
No, not for President's Day.
There's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do.
Everybody knows there aren't real laws on President's Day.
All laws. It's like it's like the reverse of martial law. It's kind of like the purge. You just do whatever.
Purge. That's what I was thinking of. President's Day purge. That'd be nice.
What is that? I've never seen a purge. Is the purge just essentially like there's one day of the year where people can go out and just do whatever they want? Like what is is it anything you want? I thought the whole point was to like
all crimes are now legal.
All crimes are legal for 24 hours.
Yeah, I think the underlying commentary is that like it's one day a year for the rich to purge the non-rich, because the
Isn't that what 364 days of the year are anyway?
Well, in the movie, like, I think the first one takes place like inside the house, mostly of like a wealthy person.
Yeah.
Like, they have like good security,
Yeah.
and then I don't know, stuff happens. But it's very much like I don't know.
So is it
social
like people attacking? Is the purge meant for the poor people to attack the rich people, or is it meant for the rich people to go off and
that?
really?
I think that's the idea.
Did you actually see this movie, or are you just making stuff up?
I just read the Wikipedia, so I could be wrong.
Because I would generally say that, I mean, every day of the year is the purge, if that's your definition of, you know, rich people getting away with murder. And, you know, if you're Jeff Bezos or Jeffrey Epstein, or I shouldn't say those two things together. They're totally different. I didn't mean that. We just started with Jeffrey Epstein.
Does Jeff own YouTube?
No, he owns Amazon.
They're not the same, right? Yeah.
What?
Are they? Do they?
I don't know what that is. It looks vaguely inappropriate. No, YouTube is owned by Alphabet.
Okay.
Or Google. It's part of Google, I believe.
Okay.
I don't know what the formal corporate structure is, but
So we can talk smack about Bezos and not worry.
well,
about
Bezos just
getting
retired
to it.
from Amazon. He's gonna, I don't know, he's gonna focus on exploring space.
Nice. Good for him.
I'm just waiting for like the alien life forms to show up and just like obliterate everybody.
That'd be interesting.
There's a theory. There's lots of theories about alien life forms, but one of them is that we should probably stop trying to contact them because we have no way of knowing like who we're trying to talk to.
Yeah.
Right? You know, like sometimes when a little fly buzzes around my ear, what do you do when a fly buzzes around your ear?
Listen to it.
You try to kill it, right? You try to like swap it away.
Yeah.
If I see a fly or a bug in my house, like I'm gonna kill it.
Yeah.
That's usually what I do, right?
So
Or-
you reckon
or-
we're like in someone's intergalactic house?
Or, right?
That'd be pretty cool.
Some species been traveling across the cosmos for like a millennia or
That'd be
whatever.
cool too. Uh-huh.
They're probably gonna be pretty hungry when they get
Hungry?
here.
That'd be ridiculous.
I mean,
Maybe.
we just kind of assume that it's like some sort of like happy,
Benevolent
like
life
benevolent alien species that's gonna like want to share its technology with us. But
Well,
you know, when's the last time that we like the best that you get like interspecies cooperation wise is like a dog or a cat. Like if they're cute and furry, we'll like kind of have them in our house, right? Like you have a pet.
Yeah.
Usually the way we cooperate with animals is we raise them to eat them, right? That's in the vast, when you talk about domesticated animals, you talk about cows and pigs and chickens and turkeys and that shit we all eat.
Yeah.
That is not like, I mean, cows are cute. I like cows, right?
Cows are cute.
But they're delicious, right?
Also a problem for them.
So,
Yeah.
and that's like the best animals. Like everybody else, like we kind of like, if we don't actually eat you directly, we just kind of like slowly, at best, like kind of push into your territory until you go extinct,
Yeah.
right? And if you start like eating some of the stuff we like to eat, we'll just wipe you totally out.
No.
Yes,
Not always.
pretty much always.
And what does this have to do with aliens?
I'm just saying, the aliens, why do we assume the aliens are any, the danger is not that the aliens are not like us. The danger is that the aliens are just like us.
A stranger is just a friend you haven't met.
A stranger is just a friend that hasn't eaten you yet.
Uh-huh. I'm sure that all the intergalactic life forms that we could possibly meet
Are
would
happy
be
and
happy
friendly.
to meet us.
Yeah, they're gonna be really happy. Like I'm happy when I roll into like an In-N-Out. I'm like, oh,
I think honestly, if the species can intercept whatever message we send out, and isn't it like, I don't know, some formula for some molecule or something that like tells you what frequency to tune in? I don't know. It's something ridiculous, right? And then the odds of you finding someone who's able to like get that message and then decipher it, I think that's pretty interesting. And they should be met.
you know what? They're gonna come in, they're gonna check us out, and they're gonna be like, yeah, you guys smelly and we don't like you.
I don't know.
We're gonna. Maybe we're already being farmed, Kevin.
We can't even
Matrix.
communicate with the other species on our own planet. Like, I don't see how we think that we're going to be able
Exactly.
to communicate with
Exactly.
other life forms, but
Exactly.
by sending the message out, why
We're
not?
letting them know we're here. That's
Awesome.
a big mistake, is what I'm saying. There's an excellent chance
the other thing is I tend to think is that you probably don't exist for thousands of years and manage to get off your planet by being like nice and benevolent.
Yeah, maybe.
You probably do that because you're like cutthroat and evil. Well, not evil, but like amoral.
Maybe. Amoral, sure. I mean, morality is, I don't know.
I mean, we're like, I would say we're kind of like chaotically evil or chaotically good.
No, it's a full
You know, like we don't really have our shit together.
We have lawful good people and lawful neutral and all that. There's a full
I'd say we're pretty much chaotic. Humans are just a chaotic race.
No, that's not true.
Yeah, it's pretty much 100% true.
I disagree.
100%. There's a few lawful guys around, but like for the most part, the species is chaotic.
Nah. Not really.
Yeah.
No. No, I disagree.
Totally chaotic.
No, to be human is to be orderly, I think. Like you have to like, no, like in order to survive, you have to have like not like you don't
Small
have
groups.
to have a
Small
routine.
groups, yes. Small groups, yes. I agree.
What do you mean?
Like, if we talk about small groups of humans, like,
No,
there has to be
any
order.
sort of human. We're like, you know, you're automatically gonna be bound to a such schedule.
Is that why
of
we
sleep.
have the same governments that we've always had?
What?
Is that why we have the same governments that started off like 10,000 years ago? Like,
Probably
like
not.
we still have the Roman system?
But we do
Because
have
it was
a lot
so
of,
lawful and
we have
orderly.
adopted a lot of things from the Roman system. I wouldn't say it's the exact same, but you could make that argument. But I
No,
would.
false.
Okay.
Well, Europeans have more of a code base, like the Romans
Well, the
did.
British were very like, I don't know, like focused on writing things down.
Not that there isn't an order or a code, right? But and often the people who are in charge of enforcing the code and the order are total hypocrites about it.
Right, so they use that as a way to manipulate everybody else who's like, oh, we have a code, we live in a good, orderly society. And they say, yes, now we've drafted you, so go off to war and die for our economic interests.
So you think aliens wouldn't have laws, or you think they would?
Yes, but they wouldn't apply to us any more than
We have laws around property for, cows. I can't just go and take your cow, right? That's the law. I'm sorry about that. I dropped a little bit of a bomb. Sorry.
I think a species should be able to get off the planet without being completely warmongering. That'd be nice.
Maybe they got kicked off their planet
Maybe.
because they're so warmongering.
I mean, America got started with a bunch of people getting kicked out of their original country.
True. Well,
A lot of places started like
not always. I mean, there were a lot of people who came over willingly to make money.
that. At first, though?
Yeah, I think that was the whole point of. I mean, certainly there were large groups of people who got kicked out of Europe.
Well, there was
instead.
there was exploration, and that was for a different purpose, but like colonization.
I mean, there were people that were English and whatever European citizens who came over here to make money.
Yes.
So
But like the settlers, though, at least like the settlers that I picture in my head, were like, Puritans who were leaving for religious freedoms and stuff. Is that not the?
some of
the
them,
true
I
story?
don't know what the percentage is. I don't think you're wrong. I just don't know how many of the people were.
I mean, I think Georgia was a penal colony, wasn't it?
Yeah. I don't know. They had peaches.
Did they?
I don't know about them.
No, did peaches come from Georgia?
I don't
Or
know.
were they like another crop that came from somewhere else that was stolen?
I think peaches have a historical
Is that a New World
significance.
crop? I think that is a New World crop. I just don't know where peaches actually come from.
I feel
South
like-
America, I bet.
I don't know. I feel like Asia, because there's like
Oh, maybe.
peaches and plums. I know plums are big in like East Asian literature. I don't know about peaches though. I'm not really sure. I feel it, but I'm probably wrong. Are we gonna look it up?
These are important facts that our viewers want to know.
Where do peaches come from? Can we look up where tobacco comes from too? Was that American? That was American. That was our contribution to the world. You're welcome.
Peaches originate in China. Thank you. Ding, 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 ding.
Got it.
Wow.
Boom, East
With
Asian.
nearly 4,000 years of cultivation, I have learned that in general, if you ever want to, this is a good default. If you ever want to know where something actually came from, where the earliest, China's a good first bet.
Pretty good.
China pretty much invented everything first. What was the other question? Tobacco?
I don't think they
Wacky
invented
tobacco or
peaches.
tobacco?
Regular tobacco. I got things.
Where does tobacco come from?
I feel like that's American. That's like the
Comes from the nightshade family, poison, indigenous to North and South America.
I know things.
Oh, archaeological studies suggest the use of tobacco in around the 1st century BC, when Maya people of Central America used tobacco leaves for smoking in sacred and religious ceremonies.
Neat.
Interesting. I see, when you guys tune into this show,
Learn things.
we learn you important facts.
Finally, my degree is coming into good use.
I'm impressed. I didn't know that peaches came from China.
I was thinking about oranges the other day.
Yeah. Are they from China too?
I don't know. But I've heard that that's where the word orange comes from.
Where, China?
No, the word for the color orange comes from the fruit instead of the other way around.
Maybe.
That's what I've heard. Fun facts.
I mean,
we're staying on fruit facts. I've got a couple. So.
fruit fact.
Mm-hmm. Oh, did you know that bananas are slightly radioactive?
Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Why is that? Do we know?
The potassium.
Is it because the aliens sent them to us?
Maybe,
And they're banana ship?
but maybe also the potassium.
Potassium is inherently radioactive?
There's two types of ions for potassium, I think, and one is slightly.
Okay, I don't even know what language you're speaking now. Ions. Are they
yeah.
negatively charged
I think
particles?
it's the number of neutrons in they have different weights based on the number of neutrons, and one of them is inherently more unstable, less stable than the other one.
More stably? Less stably?
More unstable, I should just
More
say.
unstably?
Less
I like
stable.
unstably.
More unstable. Yeah, so it's like significant, I guess, like eating a banana, or like they would use the banana as a way to like tell you like the equivalent of how much.
How many bananas? We shouldn't even use radium. Is that what it is? What is it? What is it? Rats.
Yeah. Thanks, Fallout.
It's called bananas. Potassiums.
Yeah, it's like one X-ray is the equivalent of 10 bananas. Something ridiculous. It's more than that, but it's more than you would expect. It's It's not insignificant, we'll say, but it's not crazy either.
I was talking to my daughter today.
Let's talk about our inspirational motivation, jiu-jitsu motivation.
You want more fruit facts?
Well, we'll get back to the fruit facts in a second, but I had an interesting conversation with my daughter today, or yesterday, in the car. We were talking about, because she does ballet. She's done ballet for like 6 years, right? So she's done nothing since she was 6, so actually more than maybe 6 years, maybe 7 years. And now she doesn't want to do it anymore. And it takes a lot of work. Ballet is hard work. You have to practice a lot if you want to keep progressing.
I heard somewhere that one ballet performance is the equivalent of like 2 soccer matches in terms of core work.
Well, if you're the lead, if you're just like in the back, I don't know what it is, but it is. I see that the people who are actually performing are doing some amazing stuff, right? They're really good. Even the ones that are not the greatest, you can tell they're putting out a lot. But she was talking about, I was asking her, like, why do you want to quit? What's going on? And she's like, well, I'm putting in a lot of work. I'm never going to be a ballerina. I'm not going to do it professionally. It just is a time suck. And I'm like, well, do you still enjoy it? Right? Is it enjoyable for you to dance? And she's like, not really. The teachers are really strict.
Yeah.
And I feel a lot of pressure. And sometimes, like, they're strict in the sense of, like, they might yell at you, right? Like, they might be upset with you because you don't do the steps right, or they get frustrated, or whatever. And I was...
No one in that building has probably eaten in a long time. Everyone's really
Well, that's a
stressed.
whole other thing. And she doesn't really talk about that, but I think that's almost inherent in the... I'd like to think that they're not, like, explicitly, like, fat-shaming the girls or whatever, but, I think the girls know, like... If you want to be a ballerina, like, you have to look a certain way or be so athletic that you can do everything that they ask of you, like, perfectly. Like, there's that ballerina, I think Missy Copeland, I think her name is, who's like, I think she's African American, and she can just execute every technique perfectly.
Yeah.
But she's not like your typical, I think, again, I'm mixing people up here, but I'm not a ballet aficionado. But, like, it's like if you can do all the techniques perfectly, they can't really argue about, like, what your body looks like.
Yeah.
And...
Because that's, like, the purpose of having the body.
It's supposedly to be able to do all the techniques.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I was talking to her, and I was like, sometimes, adults are looking, and coaches are looking for, this idea of perfection.
But perfection doesn't exist. Like even if you can kind of capture that for a few moments, like you do something and you feel like maybe that's the best I've done it or the best that I've seen it done, that only lasts for a little bit.
Yeah.
No one's perfect forever,
But
right?
even then, you still can't prove whether or not that moment was
Right. I mean, you can feel that you've done something. You were in, like, we talk about the flow state. Like, you can feel like I've done this and I was successful. I was in the flow state, and that feels great. The problem is when you put pressure on yourself, or someone externally is putting pressure to be perfect, it actually stops you from performing at a high level.
Yeah.
If like I'm always worried, like she goes out and she's like, well, I asked her like, well, what do you feel like when you're dancing? She's like, well, I'm trying to remember all the steps and I don't want to mess anything up because other people are there and I don't want to bump into them. It's like this obsession with getting everything right? Instead of, are you enjoying yourself? You can't do it well. I don't really.
It's like you can either focus on the moment, or you can focus on yourself.
Like if you're constantly like, did I do that right? Or, oh, I messed that up. Or like you're in the opposite of the flow state. You're in this kind of like hypercritical, I just am worried about screwing things up. And I think some people can operate within that kind of mindset for a little bit, right? Where people are constantly judging them. And maybe there's a few people who really do thrive in that mindset.
Yeah.
There may be. I mean, I don't want to say that's impossible, but I think in a lot of times, like when people either they feel that external pressure of trying to be perfect, or that internal pressure that they put on themselves, like they feel they have to be that way, it interferes with actually your performance. Like I think we've talked about this before, but
Just good enoughism.
it's not just good enoughism. It's I did a lot of reading before I opened up the school about performance, like athletic performance. And, it comes, this stuff is the research that forms a basis for like the 10,000 hour rule that Malcolm Gladwell kind of bastardized, but made popular. And what this guy did, this guy's name is, I think, it's either Anders Andersen or Eric Erickson, I forget which one. I think it's Anders Andersen. I have the book over there. It's,
Bill Williams.
what?
Bill
Bill
Williams.
Williams, my uncle. But what they do, with high level athletes and musicians and anybody basically that's trying to operate at an exceptionally high level, is very often they take away all the competitive stuff. They just want you to learn the mechanics or whatever the operation is that you're trying to, you just perfect that note, or you perfect that chord, or you perfect that, if you're doing chess, you're perfecting just this opening, or you're perfecting this position. If you're in sport, you're perfecting, let's say it's tennis, they study tennis, there was one of these studies where they're just doing forehands. And you might just practice forehands all day for days, and then backhands, and then you do little drills. But they don't let these kids at the high level camps actually compete for a long time.
So you don't break down their spirit.
Because that's what happens, right? Like the kid gets in and automatically they sort themselves, right? The kids that are better, quote unquote, they're seen as just better. Like I can never be, I can never catch up. Obviously, progression in sport is a lot more than just your physical or your technical abilities.
It's how well you know the coach.
Yeah. But the idea is like if you're gymnastic, if you're a gymnast, you do the skills, or whatever it is, and you take that out of until you make that, whatever that skill or that movement or whatever it is, you integrate it into your just general ways of moving. And then when you do compete, you're not worried about any of that stuff. You're not worried about execution anymore, right? It's just, you're just doing it. It's like we walk. When you walk, you don't think about, is that step okay? Did I take a funny step? Unless you slide on something, right? If you mess up, people mess up.
But unfortunately, everything's driven to these performances in ballet where you have to be perfect, right? But you can never be perfect.
But like that's,
and then kids aren't enjoying themselves, and then they.
But that's the point of ballet, right? Like you're striving to reach this perfection. Like that's the whole point. Like even though you can never reach it, by going towards it, you can kind of reach.
Well, I'm
this
not
greater-
saying that you shouldn't strive to be the best.
Not-
Or the best that you can be, or whatever, the best that you can do. What I'm suggesting is that, you know, if I have a school, it's kind of like here, right?
Mhm.
I have a school. If, you know, I made everything about the kids doing well at tournaments.
Mhm.
All right, guys, you know what? We have 3 months. There's a tournament. We're all going to go to that tournament, and I want you guys, we're all going to win,
Mhm.
right? And I make everything about teaching to the tournament, to the jiu-jitsu tournament. You know, that puts a tremendous amount of pressure on these kids
Yeah.
to win, because that's how I've defined my purpose and our purpose as a team.
Yeah.
And like I said, you know, when you make it like that, then you're putting all your eggs into this competitive basket. And some kids will rise to that, but many kids will not.
Yeah.
And so, you know, for me, if I look at the jiu-jitsu schools, my goal is not to make 10-year-old jiu-jitsu champions. That's not my goal, right? Like, I don't judge the success or failure of the academy by how many kids go and win medals in the youth divisions of jiu-jitsu, right? And I don't make that the goal in terms of even my adult students,
Mhm.
right? It's nice when they win, but that's not the goal. Now, you can have a school where that is the goal, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I think there has to be room for kind of different goals. And going back to the ballet, you've got to know if you're running a ballet academy that the 99.99% of your students are never going to be professional ballerinas.
Yeah.
No matter how hard you try, you know, that school, like my daughter's school, they do have produced some professional, like, you know, not
Yeah.
international stars, but
Yeah.
they produce some, like, whatever,
Yeah.
some decent regional professionals, right? Like, no one's going to win I don't know what you get for ballet, but, you know, the vast majority. So, are you going to teach to keep, you know, the majority? Because I think there is a benefit for kids to learn dance and to learn ballet.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of positive things about ballet that, for a lot of the kids, they get up to a certain point, like my daughter, and they're like, this isn't worth it for me anymore. It's not fun.
Yeah.
You know, so then all these kids wash out, and what are you left with? I mean,
A couple
as
of
a-
ballerinas.
I mean, some marginally good ballerinas. I mean, if they were really good, they wouldn't be in the school. They would have moved on to a better school.
Maybe they did, and we haven't seen them.
Maybe,
come out
you're
of
right,
school.
you're right. But what I'm saying is, even just as a purely business proposition,
Yeah, but
I want to keep as many kids in my school as possible. I don't want to chase anyone out.
yeah, but like
I want
maybe-
ballet for everybody.
Maybe the owner of the school is like has been brought up in like
Yes,
a
no,
specific methodology
that's
of
fine.
teaching.
Yeah, no, I'm not, that's fine, I'm not, yeah, that's the reality,
Yeah.
you know, where we get stuck onto maybe tradition, and there's good things about tradition, right, and custom, but what I'm saying is, if you, almost by definition, when you choose one of these things to really emphasize, you're gonna exclude or push out a lot of other kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but like
Yeah, you may not attract other kids, right? Like, you may be attracting kids that are into that gung-ho thing, or the parents more like. But I just wonder, you know, there's a point of diminishing returns as a whatever. I personally, this is just my perspective, I'm not trying to say everyone should do this. I would rather have kids that come, do jiu-jitsu, enjoy jiu-jitsu, right? And stay and train jiu-jitsu for a long period of time, than to try to sort them and or maybe intentionally or unintentionally push some out because they don't feel like they're good enough at jiu-jitsu when they're 10. You know what I mean?
There needs to be some level of competition, though. I believe.
Yes,
Like,
no, we have that. We have sparring, and that's why we have sparring,
Yeah.
right? I mean, the kids, look, the kids aren't under any illusions. The kids all know who's good and who's not. They all roll with each other.
I don't know. Some of them, the kids are good at tricking themselves and others. We do have sparring. It does keep things clear, but there is also like weight and skill disparity. So then it's I don't know, excuses can be made.
I mean, look, there's always going to be that, but I'm not,
Yeah.
you know, like, I don't like the idea of we're just going to, and some schools have their own thing, right? I'm just saying for me.
Yeah.
I would, because look, I don't think the kids, you know, even if you get, there's always a couple kids that rise, right, in that environment and become like the kids who win the medals. They do well. But, you know, this is a sport where you know, there's no real long-term upside at this point to jiu-jitsu. Most of these kids are not gonna, even if they're really good,
Yeah.
they're gonna stop when they're, you know,
So then
whatever.
why make it easy for it anyway?
I would rather have everyone just be like, oh, I just like doing jiu-jitsu. Because then you have a better chance of blossoming long term, and you get to enjoy the great benefits of just doing jiu-jitsu for a long time.
Jiu-jitsu's only fun when it's hard. Like, it doesn't have to be rude.
Oh, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying jiu-jitsu should be easy. I'm just saying you shouldn't make everything hinge on being perfect, or winning a medal, or even being the best kid in the class,
Yeah.
or being technically perfect. I know there's a lot of guys in jiu-jitsu who are not technically perfect. You watch them, and what they do is not, but they make it work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like Roberto Jimenez, this kid. You know, I watch him, and I mean, he's amazing. But it's very rare that I'm like, oh well, he's like a technical genius.
Yeah.
He's awesome. He's awesome. But he's not like this. You know, maybe he moves so fast I can't really tell what he's doing. But I'm not like, oh, like Mikey Musumeci, you could be like, oh, he's so technical, this, that, the other, and he is, but there are people who can make things work even though they don't even look like they're making it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I was watching
And
Cobrinha.
that should be rewarded too, but
Yeah.
like, I think hard work should be encouraged. And I
Absolutely.
think
I don't think these
like
things
good-
are opposites, right?
good
Or
technicality.
mutually exclusive.
good technicality
Yes.
should be rewarded.
Yes.
What I would also agree with you, like, you know, if a child or any student isn't reaching these, I don't know, marks or this goal or this level of perfection, don't get mad at it.
Don't get mad at them.
But like, I think I, as a teacher, should still like know what
There should be a standard.
what the standard is, and then what perfection.
Well, here, I'll tell you, this is like personal experience for me. You know, like I was not, you know, there are kids that mature fast, like mentally and physically. And I think I was a kid who matured like slow both ways. Like I was a really late bloomer.
Well, we're all glad you made it.
I mean, I'm still not. I'm not sure that I ever bloomed, but I think there are a lot of kids who, you know, they're on a, even though they may be the same age, or roughly the same age, there's a wide disparity in even just their mental ability to do things.
Yeah, but is that not because they like some of these kids just haven't faced any sort of adversity? Like that's the point of a jiu-jitsu class. Is you have these kids who like have never experienced any of this sort of pushback
Sure.
by another human being, and giving
Not
them
just
that
kids, adults too.
adults too,
Yeah.
and like letting them grow in that environment.
Yes,
to
I don't think that's, I'm 100% for that. I think there's, I'm just saying, like, if you're always, like, I'm just using ballet as a foil. And this probably is not even fair to ballet, right? But let's just say the strict ballet place, right? Where they're like, they don't let the kids have any fun. They're just like, you gotta do the ballet, you
Yeah.
know, do the steps perfectly. There will be some kids who flourish in that system.
Yeah.
There's going to be a few kids, because the whole point is to find the best kid, right, or the best couple of kids.
Yeah.
It's almost like a sorting process. Like when I was in high school and played basketball, you know, the coach wasn't like, hey, let's encourage all these young basketball players, you know, because basketball's a beautiful thing and I want to really instill a love of basketball. No, you know what my coach wanted? He wanted 8 kids. He wanted 8 kids who could go out and win games that year. And so he looked around and said, what are not even the best 8 kids, right? It was like,
Tallest.
what?
Who are the tallest?
Well, it would be the 8 kids that are going to work the best together,
Yeah.
right? So you could be very skilled, but if you weren't like a team player,
Yeah.
there was no way you were, I mean, usually, unless you're like a potential NBA pick, that you were going to go out and win games by yourself. And so, you know, there's a different incentive. Like when we're talking about youth sport, like high school or even middle school sports, there's an inherent sorting thing because the coaches are under pressure, whether they'll admit it or not, to win, right? And so, you know, you're not really worried about developing, you know, kids. You're worried about winning games. Because, you know, there's never been a coach who can, you know, when they stand up in front of the board or whatever, you know, the athletic director.
Are we still talking about like Pee-wee basketball?
Yeah, oh yeah, this goes on to Pee-wee basketball.
Weird.
Or soccer. You know, they have these Olympic development or professional development leagues.
Yeah.
And the whole point is to like, okay, let's ID the kids that are the best right now and give them the coaching
Yeah.
right? So it's sorting. It's a sorting process.
Mhm.
And if you don't make the cut, I don't know what you're going to do, but you're not going to play for me. You know what I'm saying?
You get on my team.
Whatever. You'll go somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know. And look, I get it. I mean, there's big money on the line, both for the coaches and the players.
Are we still talking about Pee-wee basketball? Big money for coaches? What? Really?
What even what? Yes. Oh, for sure. You don't think soccer? You don't think I mean, they have these kids now on Barcelona that are getting recruited when they're like 8 years old. They go and they live in Barcelona.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because they're gonna be the next Messi.
But basketball?
Yeah.
Huh.
Oh yeah.
Weird. Yeah, well, yeah. Like national Pee-wee leagues, I believe. Yeah.
I mean, it's not always national. It's not like, you talk about it. Sometimes you hear about these kids that are sixth grade and they're gonna be the next LeBron James. There's a reason why we're identifying sixth graders who might be in 20 years the next LeBron James, right? It's because there are scouts that are out looking because it's big money. These kids are like a giant paycheck for somebody.
I know they have like Pee-wee leagues for baseball that like go to Japan for big
Yeah.
tournaments. Is it the same for basketball? They go like different
They
countries
have
and
different
stuff?
leagues that are regional, but they're like feeder leagues,
Yeah.
right? Like you get to know, like AAU,
Weird.
right? They get to see these kids.
Mhm.
And you find the sixth grader who's like 6'8", you know?
Yeah. That sounds fun. Yeah.
So it's just, I get it, right? That's big money. You're trying to identify and cash in.
Yeah.
Whether you're the athlete's parents or family, or the scout, or Nike, or,
Yeah.
whatever team, or league. But even then, there are far more busts than there are successes. You know what I mean?
No.
No?
What do you mean?
I mean, there's a lot, like back when you could be a high school player and go directly into the league. There are far more bust, like guys who couldn't make that transition into the NBA from high school than there are successes, right? You can name the successes. You could say
LeBron.
Kobe, LeBron, I think Tracy McGrady, Kevin Garnett, I don't know who else, I just ran out of people. That was back in the 80s or 90s. Those are 90s players. And then, but then they changed the rule. So now you have to do at least, I think, 1 year.
It's for their benefit, completely.
Yeah, it's totally not for college, for college coaches to make millions of dollars. Well, don't get me started on that, because that's just exploitative, right? Like that's.
Hey, everyone gets a little bit of a deal out of it. Just because
The
you're
college kids don't.
Just because you're not in a position of power doesn't mean you can. I mean, you can take the deal. You can not take the deal. You don't have to.
That's right. You could sit at home and not win a national championship.
You don't have to
not
go to college.
compete.
It's a
Yeah.
free country.
That'll be really good for you.
Yeah.
That'll be good for your stock, your draft stock.
Mm-hmm.
That's why a lot of kids don't do it. There are a lot of kids who say, you know what? I'm just going to sit out a year. I don't want any of that, college.
And then they don't get picked because they don't get any.
I mean, no kid does that. No kid sits out for a year. I mean, I guess there are some kids who go pro over in Europe or China, I guess,
I don't know. I don't watch basketball. I'm sorry.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Soccer's different. I mean, nobody who plays college soccer is actually like going to grow up to be like a world-class soccer player.
I don't know anyone.
I don't know if that's true, but
College soccer.
I'm not sure if Messi ever went to college or Ronaldo.
Oh, am I pistol squatting? Okay. Instead of my pistol squatting, I guess.
Could you do it?
I'm gonna try. Oh.
Oh man. Let's see, do we have anybody here?
Ooh, I'm dizzy.
I see you pistol squatting.
And I'm dizzy.
All right. If no one's watching right now, they better watch it later.
I'm not going to get the 10,000 views by people not watching.
We'll watch it later.
What's their code word today? How about
Shark Ruffalo. Tatami?
Tatami?
That's a good one.
We are not sponsored in any way or affiliated in any way with Tatami.
It's just a regular word. They just happen to use it for their company.
Yeah, but I don't want to get any sort of confusion.
Like, I always get tatami and atami confused. Tatami means head, I think.
Yes.
Tatami means mat.
Yes.
Never mind. I don't get them confused anymore.
If I say it really fast, then maybe you get it confused.
Maybe Atami.
And then there's Atemi.
Well, the Atami logo is the character for head and character.
Does it mean like head is in your head, or head is in like
head.
the top?
Head. Well,
Those both mean the same thing?
yeah, yeah.
Are they the same
Well,
character?
at least in Chinese, when you reference like the head of something, it could also mean top.
So it depends on the context.
Yeah,
how
but literally the symbol means like
Oh,
nodding.
Is there nothing like first or top, or like, that's what I think of Atami.
They have words.
Atama, I think of like, oh, we're the best, is essentially. What is the best? Or the finest, or superior?
I don't know. Like for Chinese, it'd be like Diiga, which is like the first.
No? No? The
But that could
ego?
also be in
The Chinese have a word for ego?
Huh?
The Chinese have a word for ego?
No.
Oh, okay.
That was that might have been like in terms of like chronology, like the things that come first.
Oh, okay.
We also say like Zuihao, which is just the best. The
What is it
most-
called?
Zuihao, which is like the most goodest. Or like Beichanghao. Really, really great.
I saw someone at Fight to Win get knocked out.
By what?
A slam from inside the guard. It wasn't even that big of a slam.
Wait, was that the one we were talking about?
No, it was a totally different one. This one was, he competes a lot, I forget his name. Like, Fariga, I think is his nickname.
I don't know.
But he was just in somebody's closed guard, picked him up, slammed him down,
Nice.
and then the guy just basically was concussed, and
Yeah.
you know, Formiga went around, arm locked him, like passing guard, arm locked him, and then he was just like limp, you know, so the ref stopped it.
Yeah.
But it's just an interesting thing because I've seen a lot of big slams,
Yeah.
and not a lot of people, you know, there's not that many concussions. And this did not actually look like that big of a slam.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of the time that I think it was Henry Gracie who slammed Cameron Earl. And Cameron Earl had a seizure on the mat.
Oh, that's crazy.
And it was not a big slam at all. But, you know, I think elevation or amplitude doesn't always mean,
Amplitude. Ooh, fancy.
doesn't mean that it's not a big slam, you know?
Yeah. It's just, you know, if your head hits or your jaw
Yeah.
hits.
That's really all it takes is like some whiplash, right?
Yeah.
We got to talk about Adolfo getting tapped. Arm in guillotine, too.
Yeah. I didn't
I think it's
see
because
it.
jiu-jitsu has lost its fighting roots.
Really?
I don't know, I'm just saying that.
Maybe he's just bad at MMA.
I mean, he's like 7-1 now. I mean, he's not bad at MMA. You know what he's bad at? He's bad at moving his head. Because he got, as I told you before, he got cracked like a dozen times with some big hammers.
Head movement seems really hard. Can we get a slack line?
No.
And then we can put it right in the middle, and then we can work on our head movement like the
You know what?
boxers.
How I could work on your head movement too?
Well,
I could just get some boxing gloves or MMA gloves, and I could try. You have to stay, like your legs have to stay glued to the mat. And I can try to punch you,
That'd be fun.
and I wouldn't go hard, but then
Yeah.
we would just like you'd have to move.
Yeah.
There you go.
We can do that. Do you want to do that tomorrow?
No. Maybe I don't have gloves.
Me neither. I'm sure we know.
I can just get a baseball bat and just try to like hit you with it, or not a baseball bat,
Like
a wiffle
one of
ball
those-
bat. Like not it's gonna hurt you.
like,
Like a
yeah,
big
like-
baseball bat.
That's excessive. Can we do one of those tiny bats?
Those hurt.
Yeah. they
Those
do.
are illegal too in New York. You're not allowed
Oh.
to carry those around. Yeah, you can jack somebody up with one of
It's
those.
basically the
You
tiny.
take one of those in the face.
Yep.
Yeah, that's gonna hurt. You're gonna lose some teeth or break a nose or
That's
something.
why you should carry a big flashlight instead.
Yes, those are totally. The cops don't know that you're gonna totally jack somebody up with
Hey,
the
but-
flashlight that has 10 like double A
At
batteries
least
in, or
you've
no,
got
triple A
plausible
batteries,
deniability.
D batteries
It's
is what they
dark.
are.
This is for seeing things.
This
Flashlights
this
are
little
illegal.
part here in the front is for seeing, but this part down here, I always love the cops that carried these big giant like flashlights. I was always like
That's
my
what they're
best
called.
behavior with those guys, because I mean I can just imagine taking one of those.
I think I heard that from a biker gang.
What's that? The flashlight?
The flashlight trick, because they would get searched a lot.
Oh, so they just have their flashlights.
Yeah.
You're an officer. It's just a flashlight. It weighs 25 pounds, but you know I need to see.
You can keep a baseball bat in your trunk as long as you also keep the gloves.
Some glove and some baseballs, and yeah.
That's my favorite one. Don't be violent.
What, officer?
Just going out for a
Just gonna play.
catch.
It's 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. You've never played 3 a.m. baseball, sir?
Yeah. I played 3 a.m. basketball. That's always fun.
That does sound fun. I bet it's loud.
Oh.
Have you ever punched someone?
Yes.
I think the last time I can remember playing, I got into a lot of fights when I was a kid. Once I got to high school, I only got into one fight. I think one fight in high school.
Why would you do?
What's that?
Why would you do?
I don't know how that fight started. I have a pretty clear recollection that the kid was a total douche. And I think I probably called him a total douche. Because he was being a total douche. The thing was, here's the thing, for anybody looking out there, this is what happens. I didn't know anything about fighting, but I had been in enough fights as a kid. It's like, whatever. I wasn't afraid of fighting. And I'd lost enough fights where you're just like, you lose some fights, right? Like I wasn't afraid to lose. Because, you know, the consequences of losing a fight when you're 16 are very, depending on where you live, are very, like, minimal.
Well, in my high
At least where I grew up.
When I grew up, they were.
But sometimes these days people have knives and guns and like there's a gang, they're gonna like chain you and whatever. Fine, don't
like,
get into fights.
No tolerance policy.
Oh,
Like,
you
even
get
if
expelled
If you get punched in the face, they'll expel you, or they'll
for fighting.
It's
This is a
like-
big difference now, right?
It's like not even fighting.
When I got into fights, even on school grounds, like during school hours, which was rare, we'd usually like, we're gonna meet at the lot, you know, wherever we had to fight. But even if you got into a fight in school, at most you get suspended.
Yeah.
I mean, if you did that all the time, you'd probably get expelled. I didn't know anybody who got expelled for fighting. And we got into a lot of like, but they were like little fights, right? Nobody like really got hurt that badly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we were kids and we weren't like a bunch of like,
My vice principal got thrown down the stairs. So.
Really?
Yeah, they.
That's when they cut it off. They were like, any fighting is done.
Well, it was cut
Who
off.
threw the vice principal down the stairs? Jesus.
A bad no.
What?
I was gonna say badass, but no, it was like pretty bad. Yeah, it was just like people didn't give a
They just like to scrap, huh?
Yeah, like.
I mean, we like to
tried
scrap. I mean, but it was pretty low level. But back to my story.
Sorry.
I remember it was Peter Barnes, right? That I had a fight. I remember his name. We were at the bus stop, and I remember it was actually one of these things where it kind of was a slow boil because, like, it must have been maybe a sophomore or a junior, I guess, in high school, and I remember it was like during the day. It was like in the morning. I must have said something to him on the bus or at the bus stop, and then during the day. It was like this back and forth, like, who says you're gonna kick your ass? And then I'd be like, fuck Peter Barnes up. Because Peter Barnes was small, like he was a little punk. And I was like, I'm gonna destroy you.
Yeah.
Why is he talking shit? I'll tell you why I was talking shit. So anyway, we get to the bus. On the way to the bus from the school, he turns around because he's right in front of me. And he turns around and tries to kick me, right? So he tries to like cheap trick me. Like he tries to like cheap shot me. So I was like, all right, I'm totally gonna fuck you up now. So we get off the bus, and I'm telling him, I'm going to wreck you when we get off this bus, right? And so here's the thing, this is the miscalculation I made. Peter Barnes was a twin. Peter Barnes had a big brother. Well, they're the same age, but he was much bigger. His name was Paul Barnes. And Paul Barnes was quiet, right? So he's a little deceptive. But you know, they're twins, they have each other's back, for sure. So while I'm sitting there telling Peter he's gonna get wrecked, Paul's just sitting there like not saying anything.
Yeah.
Which was a smart move, because
Just keeping an eye.
if he had said anything to me, I would have been like, I probably would have backed down, because you know, it's 2-on-1, whatever. So, but I had a kid who was my friend who was kind of like backing me up. Don't rely on your friends to back you up. You don't know what's going to happen until something happens, and then you figure out who's really going to intervene and who's not. So anyway, we get off the bus. I wreck Peter Barnes. I wreck him. I take him down. I have him like I'm just slapping him. And then Paul had enough, and he came in and like kind of soccer kicked me in the gut. And that was it for me. And then Peter, of course, gets up and starts like hitting me because now he's a big man, right? Because his brother kicked me in the ribs. So anyway, then my buddy, he didn't even fight. He was like, "Hey, you should stop." I'm like, "Stop? How about you come?" But Paul was big, and my buddy was not that big, so he was scared. And Peter, meanwhile, was whipping my ass. So Paul was like, "Oh, okay, you want some of this too?" So I wound up getting like bruised ribs. It was no big deal.
Yeah.
But you know, the thing was, like, in my experience, the best way, and I was definitely not a tough kid, right? I was not the bad kid or anything, right?
Yeah.
But in my experience, like, if you fought, they wouldn't screw with you anymore.
Yeah.
Like, if you didn't fight, if you just took it, they'd drag you around for the whole time. Like, they just punish you, right? Because you'd be a mark, right? You'll take it. If you fight, they won't mess with you. So it's kind of like, hey, listen, would you rather even if you get your ass kicked, would you rather get your ass kicked and get a little respect and be like, okay, that kid's gonna scrap, like, at least we're gonna have to have a fight, right? And or do you like get picked on for the whole year or whatever? And then the thing is if they're picking on you, then you know the other kid is gonna pick on you too if there's another kid out there, because you're a punk, right? That's how it works. Even in high school, so you gotta turn around and fight, even if it means you're gonna lose. At least you get some respect.
I don't know, times are different.
But now, so that's in high school, it's like suburban, like where was I? I was in suburban Philadelphia, right? Like, I'm not saying like this is like a universal thing, but I think, you know, there is something to be said for if you fight, at least you get some respect,
Kinda.
right?
Depends.
Unless you get killed.
In my experience in school, like, whenever I would fight someone, I would end up being their friend afterwards.
Yeah,
But it
that's
was
how I met
like-
all my good friends in high school.
But when it got into, that was in like elementary and middle school though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where it was like, you can't hurt each other really, even if you wanted to.
Right.
But in high school, things start getting a little heated, especially when like social politics are involved.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
For
pretty
sure.
weird.
Depends on where you're growing up too. I mean, sometimes you gotta be part of like a bigger group.
Yeah.
You know, if you're gonna fight, you gotta have that kind of backup. But
I don't know if I recommend fighting though.
no, nowadays I think fighting's a bad idea. But you know, in you know, when I was a kid, you know, I was the only one, you know, doing bad, like really bad stuff. So
I really like the fact that you got beaten up by Peter and Paul.
yeah, I mean, it was an important lesson in my life. Yeah, and we never had any trouble after that. We didn't like each other, but like we didn't mess with each other either, because you know, like it's kind of like there's a détente there, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not a costless thing. And we didn't, you know, like we didn't say anything to anybody. Like it wasn't like you didn't run home and tell on anybody, right? That was a total punk move, you know. So you just kind of like had a little understanding, right?
Yeah.
We never really, I don't think we ever even said another word to each other the whole year. Like in anger, even made a nasty look at each other, right? It was just like, it was like, okay, we got that out of our system, and now we're just gonna leave it. But yeah, fighting today, I mean, sometimes the parents come in and they're like, you know, my kid's getting bullied, I don't even know how to defend themselves. And I'm like, look, around here, if you get into a fight, if your kid gets into a fight, even if it's not their fault, they're gonna get expelled, they're gonna get asked to leave. That's gonna be a problem for you. I don't advocate kids fighting the way that we fight or fought when we were kids, because it's a different environment. Now, there may be certain parts of the country where you can still throw down as a little kid and be okay. But people are not, schools are a lot more sensitive, probably because there's a lot more liability involved.
There's also like the security of the shootings and
Well, yeah, we didn't have any of that when I was a kid.
like I think spontaneous explosions of activity on school grounds is frowned upon.
Yeah.
People don't
You
like
gotta do it out of school. Keep it on the DL.
Yeah.
Don't let the teachers see you. Don't
I don't know, there is something that's nice about having a fight, at least like near some sort of authority, because like at least you know you're not going to get hit with a brick or something.
Well, again, it depends on what you're doing, right? Like, so here's the thing, right? Like, you could get into a fight within our school, but like when I got older, like when you started going to like football games and stuff like that, you should not get mixed up with the kids from the other school.
Yeah.
Because they don't know you, right? And you don't know what they're about, right? If you're, I mean, you gotta be careful, right? Don't be stupid.
Yeah.
So it's a totally different environment right now. I don't say any of this stuff to kind of like pretend like I was a tough guy or that this is the way you should go about, you know, conducting yourself if you're a young person or you have young people. But
It's tough.
just don't laugh at it, really.
For me, like I always was stressed out because like I could feel like a fight. imminent.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
there's that like adrenaline.
Yes,
You know it's
and you're
coming,
the butterflies in your stomach.
but like, how do you like the proper way of triggering it or starting it is weird. And nowadays it's, I think.
You got to jump on them from behind when they're not expecting it. No,
there's
just kidding.
there's really like, I don't know.
Well, like, again, I think there is a benefit to, like, I remember, you know, like I always say in jiu-jitsu, you got to face your problems, right? You gotta turn around and like And I think that's, even though I don't like, I'm not recommending this kind of fighting like in school right now, but I still think you have to confront the problem.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe the ways are different now than they used to be, but I think there still is a benefit to not running away or ignoring or pretending like the problem doesn't exist. Now, sometimes you got to do that, right? Like sometimes discretion is the better part of valor, right? If there's 5 dudes, or I mean, again, take it out of the fighting situation. You know, I wish I had been as forthright and confrontational with my schoolwork as I was with, you know, real or imagined slights to my own or my mother's honor when I was in, you know, high school or junior high, you know, when they talk about your mom.
Yeah.
You know, that would get me going. I would swing. If you talk about my mother in high school, I would definitely swing at you. You know, I don't know why, but
I talked a lot in middle school, and I ended up getting followed home once, and I didn't like that.
there was a good period of time when I was in middle school where I got chased home every day.
Yeah. It was like 4 dudes who, they were on my bus.
I was a really fast runner back then, so people couldn't catch me.
I was not a fast runner, and I had a saxophone, so it was not. I just remember like getting off the bus, and they usually got off in the neighborhood like a block away from my house,
Mm-hmm.
and so I was going to the gym at the time, and they just got off when I got off instead.
How you know it's going down?
And so they end up just like following me inside to the gym I was going to, and I just like, it's like, all right, like you're not gonna do anything. So I was just nice to them, and then I just went inside. They weren't members, and I was just like, oh god, it was like freaking out.
And did you like stay in there until were you looking out the windows like they're gonna like leave or?
No, well, I talked to the owner, and I was like, yeah, I was like, we're not getting along right now. So I was just like, well, luckily I was a member there, so I just like did my daily routine, and it was fine.
Yeah.
And at some
Why
point,
did they want to beat you up?
I was just like talking mad. Like,
You were talking mad trash, huh?
And,
Why were you talking mad trash to them?
well, because they
All
had
4 of
started-
them at the same time, or was there one guy that you started and then?
There was one really big guy who was like
That's the dude you were talking shit to?
really big. Well, and then he started like making fun of me in band class,
Oh.
and he called me penny loafers. And then I said,
Were you
something.
wearing penny loafers at that
No,
time?
I was just like shoes.
Penny loafers were cool back then. Well, maybe not for you. Like in the 80s, penny loafers were cool.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think
If you're a prep.
I just said one thing that it was like kind of okay. Like
You had a snappy. You were smart enough to talk crazy crap, but not tough enough to back it up.
It was like, you know how for me looking back on it, I realized that they were just trying to like goad me into it. So I think no matter what I said, they would have been like, oh, like it was some big deal. But I like said something dumb that the 7th grade me probably thought was clever, and then all they were looking for was a reason.
Yes.
And so they got one, and yeah, we like rode the same bus, and
See, that's dumb. Just talk smack to kids that ride the same bus. That are 4 of them, and they're all bigger than you.
yeah, I didn't expect them to like follow me to places though.
Were they just messing with you though? Did they? What happened after when you got rid of them?
I don't really remember. Like
They didn't beat you.
they didn't beat me up, but it was weird. I think my cowardice settled it for them. So
Yeah,
they
yeah,
didn't,
you-
they didn't have to pick on me ever again.
Really?
It was like there
You're
was
some nice kids.
there was a level of animosity,
Yeah.
but it was like
And you saw each other in band. These were 4 band kids.
yeah. Well, they were.
I mean, I'm not impressed with band kids generally. Not to say they couldn't kick your ass, but band kids are generally like.
I don't know.
At least where I was from, they were not like tough. They're a tough bunch.
These were tough.
Were you afraid of the theater group too? I mean, were they
No, this was I don't
the
know.
theater thugs,
I was intimidated by these people for
the Shakespearean ne'er-do-wells,
no,
the ruffians?
but yeah, it
He
was.
thinks
It was
I
weird.
spy a ruffian on the yon horizon.
Wherefore art thou?
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. It was okay. I like didn't get into a fight.
I
Ran
don't think
away.
I got into any fight. I'm trying to remember if I got into any
I
fights.
got punched in the face a lot.
You got punched in the face a lot? You're so tall. How'd they get up there?
He was tall too.
Why did he punch you in the face?
I accidentally insulted his dad, who
Was dead or something?
yeah,
I can't.
he was dead.
Dude, you're an asshole.
I didn't know he was dead. I thought we were just
What were
trading your mama jokes, and then I switched to your dad.
Oh.
And then he got quiet, and then I was like, oh, I guess this is done. And then I'm leaving the class, and I get punched.
He cracked you.
Yeah, and then
Sucker
he,
punch.
like, dragged me down the stairs and punched me again.
Wow. What'd you do? Did you like? I mean, he was like, "Don't ever talk about my
He didn't
dead
say
father."
anything.
Oh, he just.
I didn't know what was like happening.
Man.
And yeah.
You're just basically being
I
cracked.
just like got punched and it was upsetting, but it didn't hurt as much as I remember. I remember I started getting weird vision things, and that might have just been the adrenaline. But then yeah, I like went to my French class after and like failed the test because I couldn't see.
Because your face is all cracked.
It wasn't cracked. It was just
How
like,
many times did you hit you? Remember, like 3, 4?
Two. Or something.
Two?
Nothing
What'd you do?
crazy.
You didn't like fuck 'em
I
up?
was shocked. I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
because I didn't expect a fight to happen,
Yeah.
and I'd never really been in a
That's
fight.
lame, man. That guy's lame. I think you should go back to your class reunion and like jack him up out in the parking lot.
Nah, I understood like after the fact.
Be like, I don't care about your father.
I don't know. His sister was nice, and he was a nice kid.
Except when he's punching you in the head.
It's like one of those things like I understood. Like
You had crossed an invisible line.
It was
And you were like, yeah, I probably would have done the same thing.
no, I wouldn't have done the same thing, but like I've never lost a dad, so like I don't know. I could understand it, and he don't.
No, I'm saying, but you understood it, right? Like you had crossed it, you accepted it. You didn't try to kick his ass after that?
No. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't like mad at him or anything.
You're a very tolerant person.
I mean, I don't know. I understood.
I mean, you kind of deserved it, really. You kind of accepted that, right? That was your punishment.
I had no real reason to hit him.
He punched you in the head 4 times. You know what? I think here's the thing, right? If a kid like that was like, "Don't talk about my dad," you know, he's getting upset. I'd be like, "Okay, why?" And they'd be like, "My dad's dead." I'd be like, "Oh, I'm sorry. You know, I didn't know. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, man." And I'd be like, "Hey, let me buy you a root beer or whatever." I don't know. Let me buy you lunch.
I don't think I had the social.
You didn't have that kind of, like-
aptitude to navigate it that finessively.
I pretty much knew always, like, at what point I crossed the line and the kid wanted to hit me.
When I was younger, though, I identified as a person who could get under people's skin like that.
Yeah, me
So
too.
I probably did antagonize him to the point where I probably deserved to get hit. So it was just like, you know.
I mean, there were definitely times where I felt like I probably did say something enough to get somebody to punch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
But
like
I kind of like tried to get up to that point to get them to get
You like-
mad, but not like
you needle it so that when it happens, that you know.
it's
I'm
their
just
fault.
Like, I was just talking to
You
him.
use
I
the,
mean,
the kind of
I
the
just-
straws of the
I
break him back.
said this innocuous thing that he just.
Well, you gotta have deniability, right? Because you're gonna go to the vice principal, so you gotta be like, oh, I was just kind of kidding with this kid.
These
He lost his shit.
kids like you, why they started no tolerance? Because like they just no one wants to have to sort through all this crap.
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly. It is kids like me. I totally instigated so many fights, and and like I said, I used to run home from school for a little while there. But you know, the funny thing was, is because I walked to school, I walked a mile to school every day, and then I would run sometimes, but I'd be bored, I'd just run. So like nobody could catch me, like nobody that you know.
Yeah, you had a route and everything.
I mean, I had a whole thing, and like
Yeah.
I kind of prided myself that you could, you know. So it's like
Hardcore and benches and parked
you know,
cars.
I did
and
my
stuff.
thing. I had my little secret ways in and out of places,
Jumping over fences.
you know. But
listening to music. On
they never caught me. Although they came to my house one time.
Who's they?
I mean, the kids that were chasing me, I don't remember who they were. I probably said some crazy shit to them on the playground or something.
Yeah.
And we're like, we're gonna jack you up. But never really came to anything. Man, school, that's what you get to get away with when you're in like junior high, you know, in suburban wherever.
I like junior high.
Junior high sucked. It was awful.
Middle schoolers are nice. Having been a middle schooler and been around middle schoolers.
Middle schoolers are awful people. It's probably better now that you can't get in any fights without getting expelled.
They're not all awful. They're just like, it's a big group of people who are just for the first time, like, all collectively trying to be funny. And it just turns into them being mean. Because
That is funny when you're in middle school, right? Making fun of other kids.
like on TV, like sitcoms, the traditional sitcom joke is shitting on another person. And then a
Yes.
laugh track plays.
Yes.
So like that's how kids learn how
Yes.
to be funny. And then it
Yes.
just turns into everyone hating each other. Because
Yes.
no one knows how to be funny and be nice. It's hard.
It's true.
It's hard. I still don't know how to do it.
I mean, to be funny is you are making fun of.
Yeah, but
But
like,
you know how you do it?
you
This
like
is how you do it.
self-depreciating humor.
This is how you do it. You gotta be self-depreciating.
But
That's
like middle
deprecating.
school,
Deprecating is not depreciating.
sorry, self-deprecating.
Deprecating.
Yeah, that takes a level of finesse that most middle schoolers don't have.
True. All right, code word for today is tatami.
Tatami.
We didn't really talk about Adolfo.
I thought we were doing
Atama.
No, we did tatami.
We'll talk tatami. We'll talk tatami. Tatami.
Tatami.
Code word tatami.
Tatami.
Stop it. Tomorrow we'll talk about Adolfo and whether jiu-jitsu jiu-jitsu needs to get back to its fighting roots.
Why? It doesn't.
It
Fighting's-
totally does.
fighting's
I'm
not.
trying to think of legit jiu-jitsu like champions. Like when was the last time a legit jiu-jitsu champion was a UFC or Bellator champion?
The last time jiu-jitsu was relevant in MMA?
Yeah, kind of, right? Like when was the last, like BJ Penn, was he the last one? I mean, that's terrible.
Ah, we got Ryan Hall. But
I mean, he's not a champion though. I mean, people won't even fight him.
why do you want jiu-jitsu people to do MMA, right?
I
Like,
don't.
You
I
ask
want
plumbers
I
to do
want
your
people who do jujitsu who decide to go to MMA wreck, or at least. I mean, it seems like the people that are actually doing really well right now are wrestlers and strikers.
Yeah.
You know,
So if you want to do
where is it
MMA,
jujitsu? Why isn't jujitsu? What's wrong with jujitsu and MMA? We invented MMA. See, look, he's
the lack of gi. If you could make the fighters wear gis, then jiu-jitsu would be relevant.
Yes, we should have.
That would be
We should
awesome.
have
Or just collars.
gi MMA. How awesome would that be?
Sleeveless, gi top, spats.
Isn't that there's a uniform that's like that? Is it
Sambo.
Sanshu or is it Sambo?
Sambo like
Wasn't
that?
Sanshu like a short sleeve? The Chinese.
Yeah.
It looks goofy.
But I like the Sambo's handle sleeves.
Yes.
That's really
Like
nice.
on the-
it's supposed
on
to
the-
be like
yeah.
armor, like a chest plate. You
Yes.
just grab it.
I like Sambo too. Sambo's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What's his face is Sambo, right? Habib.
Yes. He's like.
I'm puzzled why. I mean, there are guys who have, like Anderson Silva was a jiu-jitsu black belt, and he did very well, but he didn't win. I mean, he won like one match with jiu-jitsu. He beat Travis Luter, who was a legit, I think, world champion,
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu world champion. He beat him with like a triangle at the last second. I'm just trying to think of like actual and like jiu-jitsu guys, champions who have gone and won like legit MMA titles.
Why are ping pong champions moving on to tennis?
Because it's a totally different thing.
Yeah.
Do you think jiu-jitsu is a totally different thing?
Yeah.
No. I mean, there are a lot of people. I mean, jiu-jitsu is used by people even who don't do jiu-jitsu.
so
like the
we're
guy who
forming
beat Adolfo
back-
used an arm and guillotine,
Sure.
right? Which is a jiu-jitsu
Yeah.
move.
Ping pong and tennis have nets.
No, but it's tough.
Little
Don't confuse it
rackets.
with these. That's a
Techniques.
it's a terrible analogy.
That's a pretty good.
It's a
analogy.
terrible analogy.
They're like the same, but
No,
they're
they're not.
different.
They're not.
They're just fighting, you know.
No, they're not.
Alright.
It's totally different. I want to get to the bottom of, you know.
The reason is that they're different things. When a jiu-jitsu
Well,
person
but wrestling
trains-
is different than fighting, and they seem to do pretty well.
Yeah, but there's no post-college wrestling organization that allows wrestlers to compete.
Yes, there is.
Where?
USA Wrestling, the Olympics,
The Olympics, yeah.
the World
I'll give you the
Championships.
Olympics, but after that, there's like nothing.
I mean,
There's no
once-
like professional wrestling organization besides
there
like
is.
WWE.
yeah, that's
That's
professional
not-
wrestling. Professional wrestling.
You know what I'm talking about, though, right? Like, you know, like there's a place where you can do jiu-jitsu. There's a place where you can do MMA. There's the only place you can wrestle is the Olympics.
Well, you can do. I mean, you can do international wrestling. You can even do national level wrestling.
You could, but like, who does that?
I mean, people who want to go to the national or to the international level usually wrestle at the national.
So that's like, isn't that goal to qualify for the Olympics or like?
I mean, to the World Championships or get onto the national team and then go and compete internationally. That's. I mean, usually
But that's the
goal.
Olympics, right?
Well, no, because you have the Olympics are only every 4 years.
Yeah.
So in between the Olympics, you have the international
Yeah.
World
But
Championships and the Pan Am.
Which is bigger, international championships or Olympics?
It depends. I think in the public mind, the Olympics.
Yeah.
But so the Olympics, my understanding. Now this could be somewhat incorrect, but my understanding is that people who actually compete in these sports, the World Championships are more difficult. Because you can send more competitors. When you go to the Olympics, you have to send a limited number of people. You know, it's like one person for each
Yeah.
weight
It's like
class.
the NBA versus Olympic basketball. Like the dream team's gonna kill it every time because like it's not the whole. I don't know.
I mean, no, I think the point is like when you go to the World Championships. So here you go. So Japan has, let's talk about judo for example. And the United States could be, Soviet Union could be, or not Soviet, but Russia could be the same or similar dynamic. So let's say in Japan, you have 10 guys at any given weight, 10 people at any given weight, who are all awesome, right? And those 10 people at any given weight get narrowed down to one. I mean, any of those 10 people could probably win against the rest of the world.
They're that good. They're head and shoulders, right, above everyone else. But for the Olympics, they only sent one person. So those 9 other people were all capable of winning a world championship.
Different weight levels?
They're both the same weight. So you could have 10, I'm exaggerating, it could be 5, right? There could be 5 people in any given weight from Japan who could go and could conceivably medal, right? They could, if they sent, like, so there are teams, I'm using Japan, it's not 100% true. There are teams, if they sent 3 people, if they could send 3 people at that weight class, they would sweep the medal, the podium. They'd get first, second, and third. They're that good. But in the Olympics, you can't do that. You can only send 1. So if that person goes, they're going to win. They're probably going to get gold or maybe silver, right? But you only have to face one of those people, right? You don't have to face all 5 of them if you're from another country, right? When you go to the World Championships, you're going to see all 5 of those guys in the pool, in the competition, right? So, I mean, it's kind of like
the Electoral College.
I mean, they do that because they don't want to see people in the Olympics that are competing against each other. I don't know how they do it if the same people meet each other.
I mean, isn't the idea so that like a small country still kind of has a chance?
I guess, yeah, maybe. And they also have to they have time limits, right? I mean, they need to get through these games, and there's a lot of different venues, right? A lot of different sports that are there. So it's not like, hey, we're just here for the wrestling world championships. I mean, it's like everybody is there for all the Olympic events. So they have to narrow things down a little bit. So my point is if you go and you become a 3-time world champion, I mean that's impressive. Even if you don't make it to the Olympics, although most people, if you said audience wise, hey, okay, world champion, what's that? You didn't win the Olympics?
Yeah.
But it's kind of like Abu Dhabi. They narrow the pool down in Abu Dhabi so much, right? It's not if you go to world championships, it's everyone who qualifies. Right, so you can have 50 people in the black belt division. If they all qualify, they're all going to be there. Yeah. It's not like you're just getting these brackets of the best, and you just have to worry. You know what I mean? It's
a different dynamic.
It's a different. I mean, I'm always impressed when I see guys, even blue belt, purple belt. They have 8 matches in a day or over 2 days, and you're like, Jesus.
Yeah.
That's impressive. I mean, almost anybody. I shouldn't say almost anybody. There are a lot of people who probably couldn't do it. There are a lot of people who go to fight to win. And they can win 1 match against somebody really good.
Yeah.
But can they go through 8 matches? That's a different thing. It's a totally different thing. So I think with wrestling, it's a similar kind of, or whatever. There's lots of sports where we're talking about wrestling being there's something after wrestling, right? After college, you have your national level.
Like a money professional. I hate that professional wrestling is a different thing.
Yes, I know.
Professional,
yes. Well, jiu-jitsu doesn't have a professional level thing.
ADCC pays out.
Yeah, but I mean, that's every 2 years.
At least
small.
It's something, it's small, but it's something. Wrestling has nothing.
I mean, I guess I don't understand. Well, maybe I have to think about it, right? Maybe you're right. Maybe there's this incentive to stay in the sport jiu-jitsu and not go MMA, right?
Well, I'm just saying,
because the MMA is where, if you are, maybe you're right, because if you are successful, right, as a sport jiu-jitsu, let me just take the sport jiu-jitsu example. If you're a successful sport jiu-jitsu competitor, you can make a decent living, right? If you're Craig Jones or Gordon Ryan or whatever, Andre Galvao, or there's a bunch of dudes that make money. They have an academy, they sell DVD or instructional videos, they do seminars. They make decent money, right? For their, they go and they compete. That's the way that they kind of advertise their skills, right? If you go to MMA, the first couple of fights, you're not going to get paid anything. And, there's a significant chance that you're going to get hurt, like a long-term injury. There's a huge investment in terms of you're only going to fight a couple times a year, probably at most.
Yeah.
You're not going to get paid. In fact, you have to pay out of pocket because you got to pay your own medical, you got to pay for your own tests, you got to pay for your own camp, you got to pay. So it actually is not there's not as much of a financial incentive.
But if you had to choose, if you wrestled.
Whereas if you wrestle, there's you're saying, there's kind of nothing. If you don't make it to the national team or you're not, then you basically have nothing to do.
Well, it's if you wrestled and you didn't want to continue wrestling, but you wanted to keep doing something, would a wrestler typically go into MMA or would they go into jiu-jitsu? Like some people go into jiu-jitsu, then you have is it Kanan? Is he a wrestler?
Kanan Duarte? I don't think so.
Hulk, one of them, one of the Atos guys, like who was the blue belt who just wrestled a whole bunch, and he was in ADCC, blue belt in ADCC.
Blue belt.
When he blue belt, he just got his purple. He's Atos, I believe.
Is he a heavyweight?
Yeah, I think so. Anyway,
I mean, Josh Hager wrestled.
yeah, but like that's not.
Did he wrestle for like, did he wrestle for Ohio?
I don't know. Whoever the blue belt
I guess
was
for-
at ADCC, there was one guy who was like way underranked, but he was way good at wrestling. And I don't know. So you have examples of people who do go into submission grappling or jiu-jitsu, but for the most part, I feel like if your reasoning for doing something is financial, it makes more sense to go into MMA because your skills are going to be.
Well, there's a bigger payoff.
There's a bigger payoff,
Right.
and your skills are more directly useful in that sport compared to jiu-jitsu.
As a wrestler.
As a wrestler, I believe. Like wrestling, it does have value in jiu-jitsu, but it'll take you a lot further, a lot faster in MMA, I believe.
I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, there just seems to be a high representation of wrestlers
Yeah. I
in
think
MMA right now.
it's just the amount of time it takes to adjust your wrestling to be useful for MMA is a lot shorter than it is to adjust your wrestling to be useful for jiu-jitsu, I believe. Could be wrong.
I mean, I can imagine where you could adjust jiu-jitsu to make it more applicable to a future MMA.
Yeah, that was what Eddie Bravo did.
Well, but I mean, without getting too much into what Eddie Bravo did, right, and his theories, right, which I think in theory are really
I
good.
mean, he's the guy who
They're thought out, right? Like he didn't just, but I think that, I mean, I'd have to think about it more, but my sense is that under the current rules of MMA, you have to change, like you have to make jiu-jitsu much more takedown-y, a lot more stand-up-y.
Yeah.
You'd have to get rid of the guard.
Maybe that's.
Or as much of an emphasis on the guard, right? Like in jiu-jitsu, you can come out, you can basically sit down and play guard. That's not what you can do in MMA. It's going to be penalized one way or the other. It's going to get either they're going to stand you back up, or you're going to get kicked, or like you're going to lose points. In MMA, if you just come out and sit down, like the judges are going to punish you, and then the promoter is probably going to punish you by never signing you again because nobody wants to see you sit down and take kicks. You know what I mean?
It depends on how fun the kicks are. Like if you sat down and the other guy like backflipped over you and kicked you, that'd be pretty cool. I'd watch that.
I mean, even guys that have great guards, like BJ Penn had a great guard, and you know he stayed on top. Like he was not like finishing people from the guard. He was a top player in MMA.
I feel like if making the transition from jiu-jitsu to MMA was viable, then DDS would have already done it successfully.
I mean, I don't know that I agree with that because I don't think that, with the exception of Gary, I'm trying to think of other members, I don't think any of them have proven they could take a shot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's more to MMA than even technical skill,
Yeah.
right? There's just dudes that are just tough, right? They can just take a shot.
Yeah, but
And you have to have that in
if
MMA.
you've got the brilliant
You have to be
mind
rugged.
of John Danaher behind you, you should be able to solve those problems.
You have to have skills. You have to have
Are
like
you-
look at Hidalgo.
are
Right?
you
Like
implying
he couldn't like move his head enough to get out of the way of like 12 haymakers and a couple of like shin kicks to the head.
Should I infer that you believe that Gordon Ryan doesn't have the skills necessary to compete in MMA?
He talked about going to MMA and then he didn't. I think there's assessment inherent, I don't know anything, but implicit in that like history is an acknowledgement that he didn't think he would be successful at
I
MMA.
mean, if anyone would be successful in it, it would be Gordon, right? Like
False. Why are you baiting me like this? I know what you're doing.
He's built for it, and
He's not built for it.
He's young.
Just being big is not good enough to be.
He's the best grappler we have. Like he should be the.
I would love to see Gordon go and vindicate jiu-jitsu its honor. But I think that I guess I don't know how else you read the history. I don't know how else other than an assessment that you don't think that you're going to be successful at MMA. If you were confident that you'd be successful at MMA, he'd be fighting MMA.
Not
Or
necessarily.
he'd be training it at least.
Yeah, he could just think he'll be more successful doing this other thing. Like maybe you'll get $1 million doing MMA, but you'll get $2 million selling promotional DVDs on.
I hope that that is correct. I think, I mean, look, and I don't mean to impugn anyone's MMA abilities or honor, but if you have an income stream of X, of $100,000, let's say it's $100,000 a year. It's probably more, I don't know, but $100,000 a year is a lot of money, right? If you have that income stream from selling instructional videos on BJJ Fanatics, and you can augment that with some sponsorships and with some seminars, and you're making, I don't know what Gordon's making right now, but a couple $100,000, whatever it is, I think it's very easy to say I'm happy with this money, this income stream, and I don't want it to stop, which it would if I stepped into the ring. I would be risking that income stream because once you step over that line, I think it's very hard to come back.
The line of losing.
The line of going. I mean, here's the thing, right? Like if he were to step over the line and then like say, okay, now I'm going to show you how to do MMA. Like I think Gary will probably do this. Gary will come back and will sell jiu-jitsu for MMA. I've actually been thinking about this a lot. I've always wondered why John has not put out a video on his system that he put in place for GSP.
Yeah.
I think that would be but he needs an athlete to do it, and I think GSP would want too much money. Maybe GSP's already kind of done it, or maybe Faraz has already kind of done it, but I have not seen John's system formally presented of how he sort of taught GSP or how he coached it. Now maybe that's going to come with Gary when Gary kind of wins one, if he wins it, or if he crosses over into the UFC at some point, which I imagine he probably will try to do. But I think like I said, if you can have a reliable income stream of 100 or whatever it is a year, you know, by just staying in sport jiu-jitsu, why would you ever leave? I mean, that's more money than 99% of jiu-jitsu athletes or coaches or school owners make.
He's setting himself as like the top guy, the top money maker.
Sport,
like making money
now
is
he's been
the
careful.
reason why
He's been careful to say like, you know, he's the best no-gi.
Sure.
Which I mean is probably a factually true statement.
But if you market yourself as like Conor was like this, right? The reason that Conor was fighting was to make money. The reason that Gordon Ryan.
Why else would you fight?
I don't know. Well, what?
I don't think you should fight for anything other than money because you're risking your health. You should be making money.
But like,
you'd be stupid to fight for anything other than to make money.
Maybe. I mean, some people fight for like fame and put their names down in history.
Well, if you're gonna lose, I mean, I could see if somebody says like a Hodger Gracie says like, I want to know what it's like to fight for real. Again, I don't have a problem with that. I respect that. And he was, you know, pretty successful. He wasn't like a bust or anything. You know, he did pretty well. You know, it wasn't like terrible at MMA. I just, like I said, I don't know why you would why you would invest all the money in an MMA career when you've already established yourself and established a reliable revenue stream in sport jiu-jitsu. Economically, it does not make sense. If I were advising him, right, I would be like, Gordon, what do you want? You want to keep making money, or do you want to risk it to go to MMA? Because you're going to take yourself out. You're going to have to train for a year, 2 years. You know, you're going to have to acquire all these skills, and you know, you don't know what's on the other end waiting for you. You know, you're going to fight in a smaller venue, right? You're going to have to go over to Asia, or you're going to have to go do Bellator. You know, the dangerous thing with the Bellator is that, you know, you have a lot of experience. Maybe they're on the tail end of their careers, but you have a lot of experienced guys waiting for you in Bellator. You know, and I just don't know, unless you have a burning desire to fight and kind of like have that, like be that athlete, then, you know, Gary's an interesting contrast because Gary is a guy who is very good at jiu-jitsu, but he's never broken through to world champion status. He's never won Abu Dhabi. He's got a guy like JT Torres, but
Gary is also motivated by different things.
Yeah, no doubt. But so he goes in, but his skills actually look pretty good in an MMA setting.
Yeah.
You know, whereas because he can stand, he can wrestle, he can, you know, like he's never going to impress anybody with his punches and kicks. But he's super smart about it. He's very strategic about how he uses those things to set up. He's like GSP, right?
he's very strategic about how he uses each part. He's well-rounded. But he's a different athlete than Gordon. Gordon almost never does any stand-up, whereas Gary's wrestling is like some of the, I don't know if it's the best, but it's a lot of fun to watch in jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? So, I don't know, like, but Gary doesn't have the same kind of, like, income stream that Gordon has. Gordon finishes somebody with something, and then he has an instructional set out 2 months later, and he's selling off of that finish, you know, off of that submission that he hit, or that sweep that he hit.
Yeah, but like the upper limits of jiu-jitsu, even with like DVD money or video money, isn't anything comparable to the upper limits of MMA. And if your goal is to make money, then you should go.
Well, no, it's different, right? If I have to go and compete, right, in MMA, and I get 2 fights a year, whatever it is, one fight, 2 fights, and who knows, you might get injured, you might be out for a while, you could get injured training, who knows, whatever. You know, the first couple of years, you don't make any money. You're not gonna make any money. No one's gonna.
Yeah, he's not gonna stop making money from this stuff, though. It's not like as soon as
you kind of
makes
lose. You know, every year that we talk about this. Every year you're not winning.
Yeah, but
your tail. You know, there's another year that somebody else comes and takes your spotlight. Jiu-jitsu is very fast.
you got a couple years.
Very
though.
fast.
You've got a couple of years though. If
So
you're at the top,
yeah, you're right. It's
people
not going to
aren't gonna
disappear
forget.
overnight. But like the less you compete, in jiu-jitsu, the less you're in the limelight. That you're marketable,
Yeah.
right? And so look, he's gonna take a hit. He's not going to compete at Abu Dhabi. He's not going to be able, or if he does, he's not going to be 100% prepared. You got to 100% prepared for MMA. He goes to MMA. If he starts losing it, even if he wins, that's 2-3 years. Like Rodolfo. Rodolfo's been doing MMA for like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And now, you know, he loses one match, everyone's like, oh, he sucks, which is false.
So maybe jiu-jitsu isn't for MMA.
Well, this is
If it's
no,
gonna
but
take-
you're.
if it takes-
I'm not.
no, hold on. If
That's
it
not
takes
the
you,
point.
If it takes the best of the best 2 to 3 years to make an okay
But-
transition to
But
MMA,
that's because.
then maybe
But
jiu-jitsu
that's
isn't for
no.
MMA.
That's not. I don't think that's a logical conclusion. I think
Okay.
if you spend 10 years specializing in not hitting, right? Like you're doing other things. You're doing takedowns. You're doing passing guard. You're doing guard.
Like wrestlers.
You're kind of. It's not even wrestling really,
No,
Right.
but like wrestlers also spend 10 years not hitting.
if not more.
Yeah.
If not longer, right? Elite level wrestlers are starting at 5,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I don't even know jiu-jitsu guys. I mean, some now, but but I don't. The difference is, I guess, goes to your kind of your earlier point where wrestling, when you're done with college, when you're 22, you're still young, and there's nothing else for you to do if you didn't make the national
You
team.
just slip into MMA.
So you go to MMA. Whereas in jiu-jitsu,
Yeah, like,
you're winning world championships at 22, right? Like that's when you're like in the sport, that's like almost, it's not
you've still got
your
stuff left
peak,
to do.
but you've got a lot of room in there,
Yeah.
you know? And even if you've won 2 world championships in jiu-jitsu are not, like that doesn't set you apart very much in terms of like the rest of I mean, Hodger's got 10, Bushesh's got 10,
Yeah.
Hoffa's got 5, you know, whatever it is. You're not special at 2. I mean, you are, but you're not, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, you're not really leaving that much of a mark.
Yeah.
I think, you know, maybe, wrestlers see the writing on the wall and they make the shift that they're going to do it, and they start training to learn how to be strikers. And I think generally, wrestling has a bigger, deeper pool of athletes
Yeah.
than jiu-jitsu.
It's also just like it's mentally closer to fighting than jiu-jitsu is. Like jiu-jitsu, we have tough competitors, but it's
I just think like you have a guy, you know, if you spend, look, when you're 26 and you decide to do MMA, you're not really going to hit your stride. I mean, if you don't have any striking in your background, it's going to take you a couple of years. You just don't learn how to do that overnight unless you're like a wonder, unless you're like BJ Penn, right? Like BJ Penn but that was way back when the skill levels wasn't that high either, like as high as it is today. To be continued.
I just think that maybe people are focused too much on winning world championships in MMA. I mean, in jiu-jitsu, and then they spend all their time doing that, and then they're too old for
The
MMA.
point of jiu-jitsu isn't to do MMA, in my opinion.
Well, that's your opinion.
That's my opinion.
I'm asking. Well, I'm not even contesting that.
When are you gonna make the jump into MMA? You've
I
been
never
doing
made. I
jiu-jitsu
barely
this
made a
whole
jump into
time.
sport jiu-jitsu. I don't know about MMA. I
No.
very early decided.
You can do it.
Knew that MMA was not in the.
Yeah, you can tell it's the logical next
You know what?
step.
It's like when a house cat looks at a lion and is like, yeah, I'm not bad.
You could be.
That's kind of it. I was like, I'm good as a house cat.
You're both cats.
No, we're both felines. And that one is like 800 pounds and I'm like 8 pounds.
Can I help you train for your MMA debut? That would be so much fun.
Yeah, it would be great.
That
I
would
mean,
be-
I don't know that if they could find another 50-year-old
I
that
think
wanted
they
to
could.
do an
There's
MMA
gotta
fight
be.
with me.
I know that if we could take you to Indiana and find someone.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
Go
You know, they
ahead.
have street beefs. Maybe I should do street beefs
Oh,
at
that'd be
50. You know, I would be tempted to do a 50-year-old MMA fight.
That'd be pretty
That would be fun. They you know, a fight to win, they'll give you another 50. They'll find another 50-year-old.
Yeah.
You know, they'll do that for you.
We could go to the saloon, put you
The
on
problem
stage.
is like, for me, the 50-year-olds are like, they've been black belts for like,
No,
30
the
years.
person you're fighting isn't going to be a black belt. It's going to know.
I mean, in fight to win it will be.
Fight to win, yeah. I'm talking about.
That's what I'm talking
we
about.
go to like Indiana and we set you up with a local fight, like your first one.
That might be fun.
Just
That might be fun.
Get a can. It'll be fine.
I'll be the can. What are you talking about?
No, we'll get you a can.
As I get in there with my bum hip, I'll come in my walker. I'll be rich,
Like
Texas walker, and I'll have the walker. Jackson, what do you think? That's a good one.
Oh, that's a good one.
I'll tell you what. I'll do an MMA match, an amateur MMA match, if you do an amateur MMA match.
All right, sign me up and don't tell me. Just bring me. To the facility.
All right, in the comments, tell us what you guys think. If Kevin and I should sign up for MMA matches for fun.
I'll fight you. Can we do that?
No, I'm not challenged. You're like 30 years old. You're like, I'll tell you what. If
You've been in more fights than I have.
I'm like 50 years old with a bad hip.
Yeah, but
You're
punched-
like a young, strapping 30-year-old.
You've punched an infinite number of people.
No,
than I have.
I punched like 40.
That's more than I
Maybe
have.
more than 4. But yeah, that was 35 years ago. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It does matter.
You're not even gonna punch me. You're gonna like do some jujitsu to me, and then
No, that would be no fun.
we're gonna slug it out.
You would never expect it.
That's true. Maybe.
Finally, my years of karate will come to some good use.
All right, guys.
I'll
I'll
see
see
you
you
mañana.
mañana.
Can we practice our kiais tomorrow?
Kia. Wait, let me fade out here. You're silly.